the Justice E. Susan Gosh of the Superior Court, now sitting at Fall River, within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Court is now in session. Be seated, please.
March 18, 2015. Return to 2013-983, Commonwealth versus Aaron Hernandez.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Have any of you seen or heard or read or overheard anything at all about this case or Mr. Hernandez since I last inquired? There are no affirmative responses. Have any of you discussed this case or Mr. Hernandez with anyone at all since I last inquired? There are no affirmative responses. And have any of you had any difficulty following any of my instructions not to talk about or communicate in any fashion about, look at, listen to, or do any research about this case, anything you think could in any way be relevant to the case or Mr. Hernandez? There are no affirmative responses. You may call your next witness.
Call Scott Bassanett.
Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Do solemnly swear that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
Thank you. May I inquire? Sir, please state your name for the record, spelling your last name.
Scott Bassanett, B-A-Z-I-N-E-T,
And where do you live, sir?
in Fall River.
How long have you lived in the area?
All my life, 41 years.
Where did you go to high school?
BMC Durfee.
Could you just keep your voice up a little
Sure.
bit and maybe try and slow yourself down a little bit, too?
Okay.
What do you do for a living, sir?
Install surveillance cameras, access control, and security.
When did you first get into that business?
Roughly 1993, 92, 92, 93.
And what did you do before that?
I was a mason.
When you first got into the business of cameras and control systems, what was the name of the company that you first worked for?
Shannix Incorporated.
What was your position with that company at that time?
When I first started, I was just a tech, and then I went to operations manager.
What does a tech do versus an operations manager?
Well, tech does the day-to-day installations, from running the cable to installing the equipment.
How many installations have you yourself done in your career?
Thousands.
And what goes into an installation, just in general terms, for the jury?
General terms, from running the cables to installing the cameras, then installing the recording devices, testing and training on the system.
With regards to the recording devices, how many times have you worked with the installation of the actual recording devices?
Hundreds.
Particular systems that you've installed, are they both sort of residential and commercial?
Yes, correct.
How many times have you done commercial systems?
That was mainly what we did, was commercial. Residential was on the low end. We really didn't use much of it. So hundreds of times we installed recording devices, commercial.
When?
2004.
And what were your responsibilities as manager?
Overseeing the jobs, getting the technicians out on the jobs in a timely manner, and then just customer relations, really.
You familiar with a customer named Metalor?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a gold refining business in Attleboro.
And do you know whereabouts in Attleboro it is?
It's off 95, John Deutsch Boulevard.
Okay. What was your first responsibility with regards to that company?
We took them over probably roughly 7 years ago. I met the customer and we did a revamp of their system. They had an existing system, we just upgraded it.
In what manner did you upgrade it?
Better cameras, better recording devices. We really expanded their system. They didn't have much when we got there.
What was your role with regards to that revamp?
Really design, where to put the cameras, where to get the best views.
Were you the supervisor of that particular job?
Not directly. I supervised the guys and the job and the final outcome, but we have a lead tech that would supervise the day-to-day of the guys there.
Did your company continue their relationship with Metalor?
Yes.
And describe that for the jury, please.
Describe what, the relationship?
Yeah, what was your role as a company with regards to this?
We kept in constant contact when there was new equipment, or if they had any issues, we were always there and always upgraded their systems.
How many times during that 7 years did you actually go to Metalor?
Probably 20, 25.
Were you familiar with the control part of the system, the DVRs?
Yes.
Can you describe those for the jury, please?
They're between 16 and 32 channel DVRs. They record on hard drives. Majority of their cameras were analog, and basically they had them in a rack, and they recorded. They stored anywhere between 25 to 30 days.
Do you know how many cameras they had altogether?
Probably last time I was there, close to 90, maybe close to 100.
When was that? That was the last time you were there?
Year and a half, 2 years ago.
What caused you to sort of stop working with Metalor?
I moved on and I opened my own company.
And your company does not have that contract any longer?
We do not. Well, Shannix, the company I was working for did. I moved on and, they continue to have their contract.
When you said channels, what is a channel on a DVR?
The inputs. How many inputs a DVR can record.
What does each input represent?
A camera or a camera number.
In June of 2013, specifically June 20th of 2013, were you called to go to Metalor?
I was.
And what was the purpose of that?
To determine some time and look at some footage.
May I approach you? Sir, I'm showing you what's been marked previously 370A and 370B. I asked if you recognize those two items.
I do.
And what are those?
Those are the discs that we made the time determination on, set the time on.
And how do you know that these are the two discs that you set the time on?
Because I initialed them.
Sir, could you just describe to me, please, how you went about setting the time on those particular video clips?
Well, we had to determine what DVR the two cameras in question that we were looking for. We found the DVR.
I'm going to object to the
Objection's the same. Objection's the same. We're not being asked about anyone else. But
Okay.
What you did.
Okay, I found the video that was in question. I determined what time it actually was on the DVR, and then we determined that it was a little ahead. And
Again, we use we.
No, I'm sorry.
We instructed.
okay, I determined. And
Let me back up and maybe break it down a bit. Specifically, how did you determine which DVR the particular views that you were looking at was on?
I took the live output of starting with DVR1 and fed it to the main screen. And from there, it was not on one. I tried two. Finally, I found the two cameras on DVR3.
So when you were saying you found the two cameras on DVR3, what were you using to determine that that particular view in the videos that you had looked at was on those particular channels?
What was that?
How did you compare them, sir?
On the screen, right on the video screen. It was actually the same video, same views that we were looking for.
Then how did you go about determining the accuracy of the time?
I checked on the actual time on the DVR, what it was reporting, and I checked on the time that it was currently.
Okay, and what did you determine?
I determined it was about 8 minutes and a few seconds, 7 seconds ahead.
When you say about, you've used a specific number with the word about. Could you tell us what exactly
It was 8
you found?
minutes and 7 seconds.
Did you determine whether or not that was true for both of the videos, for both channels?
Yes, because they were both recorded on the same device, same DVR.
Why was that significant? Why was the DVR significant to the particular time?
Because that's where you get the time stamp from the DVR to determine archiving, searching. That's where the time comes from.
Your Honor, if I could just play one of those videos. For the record, Your Honor, Mr. Reset is playing 370B. Sir, can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Where on the screen does the particular timestamp appear?
On the top left.
If you could just sort of point to it, Mr. Bassanett. Now, sir, with regards to the particular time that's shown there, to what extent is that accurate? In other words, is that off or is it exactly correct?
That's the one that was off
And what was it off?
by 8 minutes and 7 seconds.
Is that fast, 8 minutes and 7 seconds,
Ahead.
or slow?
Fast.
So what would the correct time be?
Of what the current time is right now?
No, no.
Yeah.
What would the correct time be for the video?
Would be 3.
Roughly, sir. You don't have to do the math exactly.
No, it would be 8 minutes. It would be 8 minutes 7 seconds less. It would be 3. Oh my God, I can't even read that time.
Sir, would it be 3:23, roughly?
Yeah, it would be 3:23:31.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Can't see.
With regards to both videos, the same time correction needs to be done?
Yes, correct.
No further questions. Nothing, Your Honor.
Mr. Chairman.
Call Bellum, please, Your Honor.
Right this way, sir. Please follow me. Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
May I inquire, Your Honor? Good morning, sir. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Paul Joseph Bellum, Sr.
And how do you spell that last name?
My last name is spelled B-E-L-H-A-M.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm the owner-operator with my wife of Bell's Powder Coating in North Attleboro, located at 500 John Deach Boulevard.
Do you live in that area?
I do. I've lived in North Attleboro my entire life, sir.
How long have you owned that company?
18 years.
What does it do?
We do electrostatic powder coating, which is a dry paint that's applied to any metal and there's a specific wood that we can now powder coat.
What's the actual address of the company?
500 John Deach Boulevard. John L. Deach. It goes by both.
Describe, if you could for me, sir, the area where that company is located.
It's in the North Attleboro Industrial Park. We're approximately 1.4 miles from the entrance at Triborough Plaza to my driveway. And we're on the westerly side of the road.
And if you continue down John Deach, what's the name of the street that John Deach intersects with?
Well, there's several of them. You have John Deach Square, you have Town Street, then you have Larson, and there's one other one I can't think of.
And eventually, does John Deach end at a particular street?
It does. It ends at Landry Avenue where the North Attleboro Electric Department's located.
How far is your company from Landry Ave?
Approximately 1/10 of a mile.
And sir, does your company have video cameras?
Yes, I do.
And how long have you had video cameras?
We've had them for several years. We were, at one point, our dumpsters were being raided. We had articles being stolen out of the parking lot, so I decided that we were going to put surveillance in to try and catch the culprits.
Do you remember how long ago you put that in?
It has to be 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago.
Do any of those cameras face out towards John Deach Boulevard?
Yes, my outside camera faces my driveway and catches John Deach, approximately 200, 300 feet of John Deach Boulevard.
And where is that camera located on your building?
It's on the south side of the building, towards the front of the building, and it's pointed directly at my entrance to the parking lot.
Your Honor, may I use the big board and the stand again? Thank you. So looking at what's been marked for identification, do you recognize what this is?
I do.
What is it?
It's a map of the North Attleboro area with the industrial park included.
Is this the way it appeared in terms of its layout in 2013?
I really can't see it from here, sir.
Your Honor, may you come down off the stand? Thank you.
Good on.
Right this way.
Again, sir, I'll ask you again, does this fairly inaccurately depict the way the industrial park was laid out in 2013?
Yes.
And sir, if you could you mark the location of your particular business?
My business is located right here.
And the camera that you just described, what direction does it point?
It points in this direction right here.
And you said it was on the south side of the building?
Yes, if this is, you don't have anything on here, but if this is not, it's on the south side of the building. The building's an L-shaped building, and we have it right on the south side pointing to the driveway, which is located right approximately right here.
Your Honor, move to enter this as an exhibit at this time.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. May you take the stand again, Your Honor? Thank you. Now, in June of 2013, specifically June 19th, were you contacted by the North Attleboro Police and State Police with regards to this case?
I was contacted by North Attleboro Police first. It was Detective Elliott who contacted me.
Did you know Detective Elliott?
I did.
How did you know him?
I had served on the North Attleboro Police Department as a reserve officer for approximately 6 years, and I got to know him then.
Were you also an elected official in town?
I was actually, I was a selectman.
When they contacted you, sir, what did they ask you? Excuse me, strike that. When they spoke to you, did they speak to you about your video system?
They did.
Okay. And what did you tell them?
I told them it was up and active.
Okay. And at some point, did you meet them at your location?
Well, first of all, he asked me to review. Yes.
They had a conversation with you?
Yes.
And based on that conversation, did you then meet them?
Yes.
Okay. Where was that?
That was at my office.
And that's your office on John Deach?
Correct.
When you met them at your office, what did you do?
I pulled up a time frame that they asked me to look at, and we reviewed it on the screen.
Do you recall what the time frame was that you looked at?
Exact time frame, no, but I know it was between somewhere in the area of 2 a.m. to 3:30, 3:40 a.m., something to that.
When you looked at that particular section of video, did you see any cars going by?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, sir, whether or not the video that you looked at had an accurate time on it?
I do.
How do you know that?
Because we're connected to the internet and we have world time hooked up to our DVR.
May I approach, Ron? I'll show you, sir, this disc and ask you to recognize what that is.
Yes, it's a disc with my my signature on it.
And what is on this disc, sir?
That disc is a time frame of a car passing by my facility.
Objection.
Objection sustained.
Sir, how do you recognize this particular disc?
Because I signed it.
And when you signed it, did you know what the contents were?
Yes.
How did you know what the contents
Because
were?
I had viewed it.
Okay. And with regards to the police coming to your location, what was this disc?
The time frame that they wanted me to view, and they made a copy of it.
And is this a true and accurate copy of it?
That's a true and accurate copy of the disc that they made at the time, yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Object, Your Honor. This man didn't make the copy.
You may establish how he knows that it's a true and accurate copy of the disc that they made.
Were you present when they made that?
I was present.
And did you see the footage as it was being copied
I
over?
did see the footage as it was being copied over. I assisted Trooper, I believe, Donovan, in making the copy.
And when you reviewed this particular copy, were you able to tell whether it was the same as what was made that day?
Yes.
Move to admit, Your Honor.
Object, Your Honor.
You mark without objection.
Please 7-2.
And may I play a section of this, Your Honor?
May.
Sure, able to view the image that's on the screen?
I am.
If you could just describe for the jury where we're looking with this.
We're looking towards my driveway at my facility.
Where is John Deach Boulevard in this image?
John Deach Boulevard is right here. This is my driveway right here.
And where is north?
North would be this way.
North is to the left of the
To
screen?
the left of the screen, sir.
And south would therefore be to the right of the screen?
Right of the screen, sir.
Right. If we could just play this time, Judge? The image that just went past, what direction was that heading?
That was heading north.
And with regards to the direction that that image just went by on, where is Landry Ave?
Landry Avenue was over here.
Was the car heading, was the image heading,
Objection sustained.
was that heading away from or towards Landry Ave?
It was,
Objection is sustained.
With regards to this particular image, sir,
yes.
the building that you described that your business is in, where is that with regards to this image? In other words, where is the building that this camera is on?
My building is right here,
It's to the left?
to the left.
And are we on the side or the front of the building?
We are on the side, south side of the building, sir.
And is your building closer to or further away from Landry Ave
I
than
am.
the image?
Object to the form of the question.
Objection sustained.
With regards to John Deach Boulevard, where is Landry Ave?
To the left of my building, facing John Deach.
Thank you. Nothing further.
I have no questions for Officer Bellum. Thank you.
You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Christopher Mitchell, please, Your Honor.
Right this way, sir. Please follow me. Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
Good morning, sir. Could you please state your full name and spell your last name for us?
Christopher Mitchell, M-I-T-C-H-E-L-L.
And do you work, sir?
Yes, I do.
Where do you work, please?
North Attleboro Electric Department.
Could you tell us what business is the North Attleboro Electric Department in, please?
It's a municipally owned electric department, serves the town of North Attleboro.
And could you just describe sort of how that is? Do you make the electricity, or what do you do?
We just distribute electricity,
And-
purchase it off the grid.
Yeah, how do you go about doing that, please?
It's delivered to substation, we then parse it out to the town.
And does the North Attleboro Electric Department maintain facilities in the town of North Attleboro?
Yes, it does.
And could you describe those for us and tell us where they're located, please?
We maintain the main building, which is 275 Landry Avenue, with a garage and a warehouse attached, and a substation, Sherman Substation, which is diagonally across from it.
And what is your position with the North Attleboro Electric Department, please?
I'm the information systems manager.
And so as a result of that, what duties and responsibilities do you have, please?
They include management of the local area network, wide area network, access systems, camera security systems, various software platforms, PCs. Basically, if it plugs in, it's mine.
And how long have you been doing that particular job?
I've been with the department, April this year will make 14 years.
And could you just describe for us, please, how you got into that particular line of work?
Came to the department from a .com in Boston that had failed. I'd been working there for a brief bit during the late 90s boom, and came to the department to land there in 2001.
And prior to that, did you have some experience in the technology field?
I had some.
And when you came in, sort of, could you describe to us Was there an alarm and a surveillance system and all those types of things?
When I arrived at the department, there were no access controls, no alarm systems, and no cameras.
And upon your arrival at some point, or after your arrival at some point, did that become your responsibility?
Yes, it did.
And can you tell us approximately when that became your responsibility, please?
Around about 2006 and on.
And could you tell us, please, what steps you took to discharge your responsibility in the area of the security of the facility, please?
Coordinated the installation of a card access control system for both the main facilities and substation. Then an alarm system for the main facilities, and that was followed by cameras beginning in 2010.
And did you yourself become involved in the installation and then the use of those cameras at the facility?
Yes, I did.
Now, I'm going to ask you, sir, if you could, if the witness could come down from the witness stand. Thank you. You wouldn't mind standing here if that's okay with you. And just orienting yourself to exhibit number 371. I'm sorry, let me push it back just a little bit. If you could stand in that, just in the... Orienting yourself to exhibit 371. Do you recognize the area that's depicted in exhibit 371?
Yes, I do.
And can you just tell us, please, as you orient yourself to exhibit 371, what's depicted there?
This will be the Landry Avenue area here. This is the John Deach Boulevard passing through the industrial park, and Landry continues down to Route 152.
And the location where your main facility for North Attleboro Electric Department, is that located there, or can you locate it there for us, please, on exhibit number 371?
The department main building is located at the junction of Deach and Landry. And that would be just a little bit to the north of that intersection, directly across from it.
And if just using this pen, please, could you just draw a box where that's located?
Your Honor, I object to the alteration of an exhibit in evidence.
Well, in regards to his marking on the exhibit, Your Honor, can he highlight or show where, using the pen, where the North Attleboro Electric Department is located?
He may.
I object to the marking in the exhibit, Your Honor.
May.
Okay. Now, is there a camera that's located on your facility that has a view of the intersection of Landry and John Deach Boulevard?
It does not have a direct view of the intersection of Landry and Deach. The cameras, as they're placed, were placed primarily for coverage of our facility. They pick up
Objection, move to strike. Everything after, they do not have a view of the intersection.
And we'll go into this a little bit, sir, but is there a camera that picks up that particular area?
There is.
And could you just sort of draw a circle in the area where the camera picks up at the vicinity of Landry and John Deach Boulevard?
Objection.
If I may.
Okay. Thank you, sir. If you could return to the stand. If I may approach the witness, please, Your Honor. Sir, I'm going to show you some photographs, ask you if you recognize those, please.
That top one, yes. Again, yes. Yes. Yes also.
And what do you recognize these 4 photographs to depict, sir?
That's view from Landry Avenue into the department area. Same, closer to the delivery gate. View of the warehouse where the camera's mounted. Closer still to where that camera is.
And do these photographs fairly and accurately depict the areas as you've now just described them?
Yes.
I'm going to offer these as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Maybe mark as the next exhibit.
A through G.
Now, I'm just showing you the mark 373A. You see what's depicted there? Could
Yes,
you
I
just
do.
orient us to what's shown in that photograph, please?
We're looking across Landry Avenue at the department parking area back towards the garage. Vehicles are there in the front parking lot, and you have a delivery gate on the left-hand side. We're looking to the north.
And all the way back on the left-hand side of that portion of the building, can you describe that for us, please?
Back portion, white portion, center to the left of it, that's vehicle garages.
And now, you indicated that you established a series of cameras, or a system of cameras, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And could you describe for us, please, how many cameras external do you have to North Attleboro Electric Department?
At the facility that we're looking at, 7.
And how many of them have a view, as you've described, of the vicinity of Landry and John Beach Boulevard?
1 camera.
And the other cameras, do they face towards Landry Ave at all?
No, they don't.
Showing you 373B, you see that?
Yes, I do.
And describe what that is for us, please.
Looks like on the property, we're on the department side of Landry, looking in through the vehicle gate towards the back warehouse.
.373C, you see that?
Yes, I do. You can begin to see the cameras on the left-hand corner.
And that location, is that the location from which there is a view of Landry and John Beach?
Yes, it is.
I'm showing you 373D now. You see that?
Yes.
What is that, please?
That is the corner of the warehouse where the camera that picks up part of Landry and Beach is located.
And can you show us which camera it is, please?
It is the most left-hand of the cameras.
Is that this one?
Correct.
Now, when you established the security, card access, and surveillance system, did you do something as to make sure that the time that was set for that purpose was accurate?
Yes.
And could you tell us what you did in order to do that, please?
Certainly. We used time source from Verizon to set those.
And how do you go about doing that?
It's the simplest way is cell phones are set to accurate time. Phone company bills based on accurate time.
And so you use that as the source of your
For the
time, is that
cameras,
correct?
yes.
For the cameras.
Correct.
And did you maintain that over the period of time that the camera system was in existence?
Yes.
And was that time accurate on the morning of June 17th of 2013?
Yes, it was.
And in fact, sir, prior to June 17th of 2013, did you routinely yourself access the surveillance system to ensure that?
Yes.
Now, were you asked to produce video of the morning of June 17th of 2013 taken from that camera that you've described?
Yes.
If I may approach. I'm showing you a disc, sir. Do you recognize what's on this disc?
I see my initials, yeah.
And have you had an opportunity to view the contents of this disc?
Yes, I did.
And could you tell us what are the contents of this particular disc, please?
It's the time frame requested and supplied.
And did you do that yourself? Produce the time frame that was requested by downloading your video and providing it to the police?
Yes, I did.
And the system that you used, sir, you provided a player as well, is that correct?
Correct.
And is that the player that you use at the North Attleboro Electric Department?
When we are looking at the clips outside of the software itself, yes.
And you actually provided the player as well along with the video, is that correct?
When video is exported from that system, the player comes out as part of it as well. It's packaged.
Now, the particular software that you use, could you tell us what that is, please?
It's software from a company called Video IQ. They're based in Burlington, Massachusetts.
And has that been the software that you've used on your video always since you've installed it?
Yes.
Now, that software, does it do something to the video as the video is being preserved?
Yes, it does. In operating, it will appear to frame an object that's moving. We'll attempt to identify it as either a person, a vehicle, or an object.
And does the software actually then do something on the video?
Yes, typically we'll put a box around it.
And that's all happening at the time the video is being made, is that correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, does the software use that process to send you alerts?
It does.
And now, when you produced this video, have you had a chance to review it?
I had a chance to review it.
And to determine that this disc is fair and accurate and authentic from what you produced, is that correct?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that the video that you produced begins at 3:10 in the morning on June 17th of 2013?
Yes.
And then it runs for 40 minutes, is that correct?
Yes.
And in order to determine the time in the morning, you take 3:10 and add the playing time of the video to it in order to arrive at the time in the morning.
That's correct.
I'm going to offer this as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Which may be marked as the next exhibit without objection.
Now, sir, just to orient us to the video, as we're looking out from your building, North Attleboro Electric Department, the portions of the, well, let me ask it to you this way. That camera, what is it designed to actually pick up?
The camera is set up primarily to pick up the area between the garage attached to the main building and the warehouse back garage.
And, but if you continue on down the camera's field of view, it picks up the roadway, is that correct?
It picks up part of Landry Avenue and part of Deitch.
And you're on the north side of Landry Ave.
Correct, and that camera is essentially facing south.
And so, as we're looking at it, objects passing from the right of the video are essentially heading on Landry Ave towards John Deitch Boulevard, is that correct?
Heading down Landry.
I'm sorry. If you see an object passing on the right, from the right to the left, which direction is it heading?
Objection.
It is heading, if it's heading from right to left, that's west to east.
Okay, and if an object is
Forgive me, I've been...
on 371 now, just orienting on Exhibit 371, that's in this direction, is that correct?
That is correct.
And objects that are passing, as you've indicated here by this line, you can actually see a portion of John Deitch Boulevard, is that correct?
Portion.
Object to the form of the question, Your Honor, as it relates to the video.
So here you've drawn your circle here, essentially, covering portions of John Deitch Boulevard, correct?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that having viewed the video yourself and used your own cameras a number of times, you can actually see things on John Deitch Boulevard in that location?
Objection.
It's the same, you're not asking me, remind you not to ask any questions.
Tell us about your coverage there of John Deitch Boulevard, please.
The coverage of Deitch Boulevard is not primary intent of the camera. Let's be very clear about that. The fact that it picks up anything on Deitch is...
Objection. Move to strike everything after the answer about John Deitch Boulevard.
Strike the entire answer is non-responsive to the question.
Just insofar as your description here, tell us about the coverage of John Deitch Boulevard, please.
Peripheral would be the word I would use.
And can you describe sort of the directions as it relates to the video, what's happening if you can see things on John Deitch Boulevard?
Objection.
It's the same.
Oh. As you've described here, right to left is heading in this direction, left to right is obviously the other direction, correct?
Correct.
Down Landry Ave this way.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask the court's permission to play Exhibit 374, beginning at 17 minutes into the video from 3:10 a.m., please, Your Honor. Now, sir, I'm just going to ask you to, in this location here, could you describe for us what that location is in relationship to the streets as you've described them, particularly in Exhibit 371?
That would be Deach.
Thank you.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Me.
I call, excuse me, Lieutenant Stephen Bennett, please.
Right this way, sir. Please follow me. Please face the clerk, raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat, sir.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
State your full name, please.
Stephen C. Bennett,
Can you spell your last name?
B-E-N-N-E-T-T.
And where do you work, sir?
I'm employed by the Massachusetts State Police,
And how long have you been with the Massachusetts State Police?
28 years.
How are you currently assigned?
I'm assigned to the Crime Scene Services Section Unit. Currently, I'm located at the Medical Examiner's Office in Boston.
Excuse me. How long have you been with the Crime Scene Services Section?
12 years.
And prior to being attached to the Medical Examiner's Office, where were you assigned?
I was assigned to a sub-laboratory located in Lakeville, Massachusetts.
You just described that laboratory. What portions of the Crime Scene Section Services are there?
That laboratory includes the Crime Scene Services Section, the Criminalistics Unit, as well as FIS, the Firearm Identification Section.
Is that also known as the ballistics?
It is.
Now, with regard to the time down at Lakeville, just describe what your duties were during your time there.
My duties were there was supervisor for a six-person unit in the Crime Scene Services Section. We would respond to, that was my duties as a supervisor of that unit.
Okay. And just with regard to what your purpose was, or what did you do as the supervisor and your other, the people you supervised? How were you?
The functions I performed was to review reports, do verifications of casework, whether it be fingerprints or footwear, that I would go out to scenes such as homicides and assist at these scenes and supervise, as well as I was on the general call list, and I would go out to all the type of calls that Crime Scene Services go to, including fatal motor vehicle accidents, suicides, unattended deaths, property crimes such as robberies and breaking and entrance, to assist local PDs and other state police units.
And is it one of your functions to respond to any unattended or suspicious deaths?
Correct.
And during your time in the Crime Scene Services Section unit of the State Police, how many such unattended deaths have you responded to?
Thousands.
Now, just directing your attention back to June 17th of 2013, did you work on that date?
I did.
And you indicated that there's a on-call duties that you share with other people in your unit.
Correct.
Who was on call that day?
I was.
And when you're on call, just describe how long are you on call for?
Weekdays, it's a 24-hour, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. basis. For weekends, it's Saturday morning, 7 a.m. to Monday morning, 7 a.m., so it's a 48-hour period.
Okay. So directing your attention to the 17th, that was Monday, 17th, 2013. What time did you go on call?
At 7 a.m. that morning.
Okay. And you would then remain on call till 7 a.m. Tuesday morning?
Correct.
Sometime at approximately in the earlier part of the afternoon, did you receive a call?
I did.
And as a result of that, did you go somewhere?
Yes.
And where did you go?
In the early afternoon, I went to the town of Dartmouth. I responded to a request from the Bristol Detective Unit to assist Trooper Eric Benson. It was regarding a suspicious unattended death at a home.
Okay. Now, at that time, the on-call trooper was who?
The on-call trooper for crime scene?
I'm sorry, for the detective unit.
It was Trooper Eric Benson.
Okay. And did he appear at that scene?
Yes, I met him at that location.
Okay. Do you recall how long the two of you were at that scene?
I'd say an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay. Now, sometime after that, did you clear that scene?
I did.
And sometime later, within the next hour or two, did you receive another phone call?
I did.
And who called you?
It was Trooper Eric Benson as well.
Okay. And at that time, did you have a conversation with him?
I did.
And as a result of the conversation, did you begin to head somewhere?
Yes, I did. I left the office in Lakeville and proceeded to the town of North Attleboro.
Okay. Now, sometime in the evening hours, did you go to a particular location in North Attleboro?
I did.
And where was that?
It was John Deach Boulevard in North Attleboro, an industrial park. I believe the address was 344 inside that industrial park.
And just how did you travel to these scenes? What type of vehicle are you traveling in?
I have an unmarked state police cruiser.
Okay. And approximately what time did you arrive at this location?
I'd say it was around 6:50, 6:45, 6:50 p.m.
And when you arrived, can you just tell us about what was the condition of the weather at that time?
It was in the middle stages of a thunderstorm. There were gusty winds, lightning, thunder. There was moderate to heavy rain.
Okay. And when you responded, just describe where did you, just the scene that you came upon, just describe that generally.
There was a marked North Attleboro cruiser at the entrance. It looked like an unimproved road, a dirt, gravelly road that continued straight, but at that point John Deach Boulevard goes off to the right, but if you went straight, you went into this unimproved road. There was a building to the left, an industrial building, and then again there's this little dirt road that led down. I could see a police cruiser there.
Did you park somewhere in that area?
I parked right there and spoke to the officer. I don't recall who it was.
Okay. And was there, at some point, did you move further into that area?
Yes, at that point I walked into the scene. I left my cruiser at the top of that section and walked in.
And approximately what distance was that from the roadway?
I'd say about 1/8 of a mile. It was, I don't know, 200 or 300 yards anyways.
Okay. Now, as you approached that area, did you see other law enforcement officers?
Yes, once I get down, further down that roadway, there was actually another police cruiser midway along the way, and he was keeping, I met with that officer and then continued down and saw some plainclothes police officers as well.
And was he doing something when you said you met with him?
Yes, he was keeping a log of people entering the scene.
And in these number of scenes that you've appeared at, if there's a suspicious death that's a potential homicide, is there a log kept of people coming to and coming from the scene?
Usually.
Okay. So did you have a conversation with him, tell him who you were?
I did.
Okay. As a result of then that conversation, where did you go?
I continued to walk right down into what I could see. There was some tarpaulins on the ground. I saw some tents, and I saw a number of police officers. Some of them I knew by name, some of them I didn't, were gathered off to the side of the scene.
Okay. Excuse me. When you said you were walking down, there were some tarps in that area?
Yes.
How many tarps, if you recall?
There was one large one centered on the roadway when I first entered. There was a smaller one about 40 feet beyond that, 50 feet beyond that, with a canopy tent over it. Then I saw two smaller, they look like maybe the storage bags for these tarpaulins were off to the right of where the tent and the small tarpaulin was. So there was one large, one small, and then these two other, again, looked like carrying cases or bags for the large tarpaulins off to the side. And then there was another tent further to the left.
Okay. Now, on your drive from Lakeville to North Attleboro, after you had first had that conversation with Trooper Benson, did you have contact, did anyone else call you?
Yes.
And who is that?
Sergeant Paul Baker from the Bristol Detective Unit.
Okay. And did he ask you some questions while you were traveling to North Attleboro?
He did.
And just tell us what were those, what did he ask you? Okay. Did you advise him to do something on the way?
I did.
Okay. Well, just as you were traveling, did you notice anything en route from Lakeville to, or strike that, when you received his call, had you noticed anything about the weather where you were at the time you were traveling?
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
It was, you know, a typical, it was a summer evening, it was warm, but off, as I proceeded north on 495, leaving the Lakeville area, you could see large, dark storm clouds approaching from that area. And as I drove north, I could clearly see that I was getting closer to what appeared to be a thunderstorm.
Okay. Now, when you ultimately arrived at this scene, did you see if Sergeant Paul Baker was at that location?
He was.
Now, you've indicated you've been to thousands of scenes, is that true?
Thousands of death investigation scenes.
Okay. And with regard to just your background or experience and training with regard to crime scene, do you have certain protocols with regard to preserving evidence?
Certainly.
Okay, and just tell us what those protocols would be.
Well, evidence at a scene needs to be documented in place, but it also needs to be collected. And there are certain situations where you would have to collect it quicker than normal, and scenes where a weather situation occurred would be one of those situations. So if there was impending rain or snow or damage to the evidence was going to be done, that evidence would be collected quicker.
Okay. Are certain types of evidence subject to damage or destruction by the weather?
Yes.
And what types of items might that be?
Well, anything that would be tested for fingerprints would be in peril with a rain or water situation or snow situation, because fingerprints are made up mostly of moisture. 98% of what is left behind on a fingerprint is actually water coming out of the pores of your skin, and certainly can be impacted or destroyed by rain or water. DNA can be impacted by water, and any type of impression evidence, tire tracks or footwear, certainly can be impacted by weather situations, rain or running water.
What about clothing?
Clothing, if it's going to be tested for many things, including GSR or DNA, can be impacted by water.
Okay. What about a cigarette or a cigar?
Yes, it could be.
So when you arrive and as you approach this area that you're describing where you see the tarps, do Do you make any general observations of the area?
Yes. My general observations of the area were it was in a sand pit type. It was under construction. There were large mounds of dirt. There was large mounds of a black substance that appeared to be like a tar type substance. In the scene itself, again, we had that large tarpaulin that was centered on this unimproved dirt roadway. The smaller tarpaulin appeared to be covering a body. And where that was located, the smaller tarpaulin was a small hill. It was on higher ground. That area appeared to be very compacted and very hard, almost like a cement feel. It was just very, very hard material, whereas the area where the large red tarpaulin was, and then where those two items that I described as like covering or what the tarpaulins came in, but they were smaller red objects. Again, that drifted down into it went down the hill a little ways. Those areas appeared to have more sand and silt and gravel and were looser materials. Those were my general observations when I just looked the scene over before I spoke to officers and got a briefing on what was going on.
Okay. With regard, once you were down in that location, did you make any observations of any homes in the area?
There were no homes in the immediate area. If you look to the back of this pit, you know, all the trees were leaved at that time of year. You could see off in the distance some homes, but they were quite, I'd say, at least a quarter to a half mile away to that back part of the pit. Those are the only structures or buildings I could see, but they were off in the distance.
Did you see any commercial buildings from this location?
You could, if I turned them back and looked from the approach area, but there was that one building that was off in the distance that what I first described as where I left my cruiser. But again, that was quite some distance, and it was shielded by a lot of the trees. It was hard to see.
Did you see any improvements, such as street lights or anything like that in the area?
No.
Now, after you were down there, at some point, did you have a conversation or briefing with other officers, just yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And as a result of that, did you take a position down at this scene? Did you go somewhere?
Yes, I returned to my my cruiser. Yes, I returned back to my cruiser.
Okay, and what did you do when you returned back to your cruiser?
I obtained my camera, and now as the rain was starting to, it was beginning to end, I began taking some overall photos of this area that I've just described.
And how long would you say that rain, from your arrival, how long did the rain last, or approximately what time did it end?
By the time it completely ended, I'd say 45 minutes, maybe an hour, before it completely stopped.
So what time would this have been approximately?
About 7:45.
Okay. Now, what was the lighting after the rain had ended? What was that like?
We were headed towards dusk. Again, being June 13th, it was daylight probably went to 8:30. Dusk 8:45 before it really started to get dark. So we still had some available light, but it was waning. It was towards the, heading towards the dusk period, the twilight.
Did the sun, after the passage of the storm, did the sun come back out?
It did.
And was there anything else that happened at that time? Did you notice anything in the sky?
Yeah, yes, it was a very vibrant rainbow.
And how long would you say you had light before actually darkness had started?
For total darkness, we probably had a solid hour.
Okay. Now, just describe, excuse me, after the rain had stopped, what did you do over the next hour or so before it got dark?
Took my overall pictures, writing notes, understanding what was at the scene, the things that had to be done. I met with another two troopers from my unit who I called to the scene and discussed what we were going to do from there.
Okay. Who are the other troopers who responded from your unit?
Trooper Michael Lombard and Trooper Joseph Sylvia.
Now, at some point were they tasked to do certain things at the scene?
Yes, I asked Trooper Lombard to prepare a video of the scene, and I asked Trooper Sylvia to do some comparative photos of items that were within the scene.
Now, at some point after the passage of this storm and the rain stopping, were you present when any of these tarps were removed?
Yes.
Okay. And just describe what was the first tarp that was removed?
The large red tarp that I described as being centered on the roadway.
And just describe when that tarp was removed, did you see anything under it?
Yes.
And what was that?
There were tire tracks underneath this tarpaulin.
And did you do anything with regard to the to that area of where you observed tire tracks under
Yes.
the tarp? What was that?
I took a quick look at the tire tracks. As my back was to John Deach Boulevard looking into the scene, I saw two tracks that were parallel to each other, appeared to be made by the same vehicle. The one on the left was in material more conducive to leaving impressions, and by that very nature was a better looking tire track. I placed a placard next to that tire track, number 1 placard next to that tire track.
Okay. When you say it was that tire, there were two tire tracks that you could see.
Yes.
Now, the one you're describing that had appeared to be better, was that closer to the body or further away from the body?
Closer.
Now, when you say it was a better tire track, what type of material would create a better tire track?
Well, the loose sand, gravel, silt, which it was on, left better impressions. You could see the characteristics of the tire much better. The other tire happened to be on that blacker material that was either asphalt or, it's just a black substance, and harder, and by that very nature it did not leave, even though you could see a tire track, you couldn't see a lot of detail from the actual tire that rode over it.
Okay. Now, after making that observation and placing placard number 1 in that area, did you see any of the other tarps being uncovered?
Yes.
Okay. And what other tarps were being uncovered?
The top that was covering what appeared to be a human body was lifted, and the victim was underneath that tarp.
Okay. Now, excuse me, after that was, the body was uncovered, did you see any processing of that body?
At that time, no.
Okay. Some later time, did you see anybody doing anything with regard to the body?
Yes.
And what was that?
When the medical examiner's office arrived to remove the body from the scene, it was sometime around 9:30, 9:45. Our normal course at these scenes is to go through the pockets of the deceased and to see if there's any items, anything that should be located, and that's what happened in this case.
Okay. Were there certain items that were recovered from this body?
There was.
And do you recall what those were?
There was a cell phone, a wallet, and a set of keys.
Okay. And with regard to that, did you have involvement in that, or were those items recovered by somebody else?
They were recovered by troopers from the Bristol Detective Unit. I believe it was Trooper Eric Perez, and Trooper Shervin.
Okay. Now, I think you indicated there was two smaller, either bags or smaller covers in the area, is that right?
Yeah, it's about 12 or 13, 14 feet from the body.
Okay. And just in terms of directionality, where and what direction from the body?
going back towards the tire tracks.
Okay. And just orienting us from the head of the body and the feet of the body, this area where you saw these two smaller tarps, where were they closest to the body?
To the feet.
Okay. Now, did you see at some point those two tarps uncovered?
Yes,
And did you make an inspection of the areas underneath those areas?
I did.
And just tell us what you saw.
Under each smaller red, whatever they were, red bags or tops, were footwear impressions.
Excuse me. Did you do anything with regard to locating those or placing a placard in those areas?
I did.
Okay, and just tell us what you did with regard to that.
One was numbered placard number 2, and one was numbered placard number 3.
Now, at that time, are the covers all off the areas?
Yes.
And just in terms of the lighting conditions, what time of day or night is it at this point?
It is now close to total darkness.
Do you do, what are you doing at this time?
After these items are uncovered, I've directed Trooper Sylvia to photographs of placard 1, 2, and 3, and I am pretty much taking notes at this time.
Okay. And did you make your own observations of placards 2 and 3?
I did.
And just give us a general description of what you saw at placard, start with number 2, please.
Placard 2 was a partial footwear impression. It had some detail in the midsole of the shoe. There was a herringbone type wave in there. Could see 3 or 4 lines. It appeared to be a left shoe. Other than that, I didn't see anything else. Other than it was in the sand and silt and gravelly area.
Just with regard to that sandy, silt, gravelly area, how big an area was that?
It wasn't that big of an area. Again, it was there because it was at the bottom of the hill, and it would wash down. I'd say it was only maybe 2 by 5 foot area. It was a small area. There was a lot of vegetation around it, but the actual sand silt area was a small area, 2 by 5 feet, I would estimate.
And what about then the surrounding area, going out beyond that? What was that?
Going out beyond that, it quickly transitioned into that area that was covered with that black, pebbly substance that were in piles around there that looked like scraped up tar to me.
And were those areas conducive to making footprints?
No.
Okay. Now, do you have any training in footwear impressions?
I do.
Okay, and can you just tell us about that?
When you first start in the unit and crime scene, approximately a 12-week program that includes footwear, fingerprints, tire tracks, and then general crime scene investigation, photography. That's the basis of it. After that, I have taken courses in footwear and tire tracks, and numerous courses in fingerprints. I've been to a number of conferences and workshops sponsored by the IAI, which is the International Association of Identification, including workshops on tires and footwear. I receive ongoing training. I take proficiency tests on a yearly basis, both in footwear and in fingerprints, and then my experience in the field as well.
Okay. Tell us about your experience in the field. How often have you analyzed, compared footwear impressions?
I'd say it would number in the thousands as far as comparisons I've made of footwear over the years, since probably 2005 I was first proficient in it, to this day. I'd say in the thousands.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about the field of footwear impressions?
Okay, footwear impressions. A footwear impression is the tread design or the outsole of the shoe coming into contact with a material or another object, and it leaves the characteristics that we have on the bottom of our shoes. And sometimes this can be seen, such as in sand or silt in this case, or it could be stepping in a substance and stepping on a smooth surface, like a linoleum floor. It could be cement. Sometimes it can't be seen. It could be a dust print. That we all acquire dust on the bottom of our shoes, and you could walk across the floor, and you may not be able to see that easily, but there are methods, including using powder that you would use to find latent fingerprints. You can also find latent footwear impressions on certain surfaces. Those would be, that's how impressions are left. And we're looking for those class characteristics that are on the bottom of shoes. Class characteristics, I think a good description or definition of it would be, these are unavoidable, they're intentional items that are put in the bottom of shoes by manufacturers during the manufacturing process. And those could be herringbone patterns, they could be triangles, they could be bars. It depends on how the manufacturer has decided to outfit the bottom of a shoe. Of course, there's athletic shoes, dress shoes, there's thousands and thousands of shoes, and an equal amount of designs that are on the bottom of these shoes.
And so with regard to the observations that you were making, how were those documented?
The observations as far as these footwear impressions at the scene, they were documented by Trooper Sylvia. He utilizing, in this case, a quadrupod, tripod with 4 legs. It's set up so it's taken, the photos are taken at a 90-degree angle to the footwear. A scale is placed in this footwear, so when we go to analyze the photo, this photo can be scaled to a natural size, and a natural size meaning what it actually looks like in real life. What is that actual size of that footwear impression? And it's done, and because it's nighttime, and even if it wasn't, this has to be done with flash photography. So light is entering this photograph, and to do properly, you'd have to take a number of photographs, at least 4, from all different sides, so that light is allowed to illuminate that impression, so it could be seen better.
Is the use of light important when taking photographs of footwear impressions?
Certainly.
Can you describe why is that important?
Well, in this case, it was a 3-dimensional impression, so the light coming in from different sides would illuminate different parts of this impression. The middle of the impression you're always going to see, but the edges of the impression, the bottom, the top of the impression, it's important for that light to be let into that area so those parts can be seen as well.
Okay. And was that done in this case?
It was.
Okay. Are you familiar with casting? I am. And what is casting?
Casting is used in the event of a 3-dimensional impression. It's basically mixing, it used to be used plaster of Paris, now they use dental stone. It's mixed to the consistency of like a pancake batter, and then either just poured into the impression, or if it's a very shallow impression, you would use forms around it to pour it into. Quite often, depending on what surface that you're using, some type of fixative would have to be used. Even a hairspray type thing would work. That is to keep any detail in there from moving around and losing that detail of the impression. So that's how casting works.
Okay. And have you used casting in the past?
I have.
And with what type of success?
Varied degree of success, but ultimately, I have to say, in my experience, photographs have been the best evidence or the best comparative evidence that I take away from the scene. The casts I've used have been marginally helpful, especially when there's certain surfaces like loose sand and silt. It tends to destroy the detail pretty quick, but you always have to do the photography first, even if you do cast, because that potential of losing any of that detail that the cast would do to it.
Okay, was any casting done in this case?
There was none.
Okay, and is that, can you explain why there was no casting?
Well, in our protocol, within my crime scene protocol, it clearly states that it's to the discretion of the examiner. And also that there's certain surfaces, like I described, the sand and silty type surface, is very difficult to retain the detail. Not impossible, but very difficult to retain that detail for a usable cast.
Did you rely on your own experience in past usage of cast in making a determination not to cast this footprint?
I did.
Okay. Now, after your observations at placard 2, can you just describe at placard 3 what you saw?
This was a partial footwear impression. It appeared to be the front of the shoe, not the heel of the shoe. I observed a number of lateral lines going across the impression. I observed a couple circles within the impression, one being larger than the other.
Okay. And again, were photos taken of that area as well?
There was.
Just have a moment, Ron, please. So I'm just going to show you a series of photographs that were previously marked as 236. To 237A through 237K. Just have you take a look at those and ask you if you recognize what's depicted in those photos.
Yes, these are a number of photographs taken by Trooper Sylvia on the evening of June 17th, depicting the two footwear impressions that were described, placard number 2 and placard number 3.
Raise your hand, please. Sure, I'm placing what's previously marked 3C. Can you see that all right?
I can.
Now, does this show the general area of the scene as you remember it on June 17, 2013?
The general area, yes.
And is that the location of where you have described the body when you were at that scene?
Yes.
Now, with regard to this area that you've been describing, well, first of all, you indicated there was some tire tracks that you observed. Is that shown in this photograph?
It does.
Okay, and just if you would point out the tire tracks, please. So you just point to the screen, I'll just point back.
Okay. The tire track that I see here going, this is the length of the tire track here. The one that's closest to the victim was the one I described as, once you get down in this area, it got into that sandy, silty area that was covered by the tarpaulin. The tarpaulin would be further down, or right about here would be the beginning of it.
And you're indicating just right in here?
Right at the bottom of the picture.
Okay. And that, the tarpaulin that you're referring to, you placed a placard.
I placed a plaque at number 1. It would probably be right at the base of this picture.
Okay, so I'm just going to point right to here. Is that fair?
That would be fair.
Okay, and with regard to that, what approximate distance was that where you saw the tar over that tire track that you put placard 1 to the body?
I'd say between probably 30 to 50 feet.
And when you earlier you referenced the better tire track, is that this one?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where's the second tire track?
The second tire track you can see over this side, so in this picture for me it's to the right of the tire track I had described.
And you're just showing...
That's the, okay, yes, right there. Yep.
Okay. Now, with regard to the items where you placed placard 2, can you show that area, or is that area shown in this photograph?
Yes, that area would be right, there's 2 white items here. I know this to be a piece of plastic that was partially embedded into the ground.
Okay.
And then just to my left of that plastic would be placard number 2, and then a little further up the hill over in this location would be actually right about here, placard 3, where that other white object is.
Okay, so just with regard to, am I fairly locating those 2 points, here and here?
Yes, that would be the rough areas where those were.
I'm just going to show you first 236 to recognize what's depicted here.
Yes, that's a partial footwear impression I described that had lateral lines moving through the impression with 1 larger circle and 1 smaller circle.
And with, just going back to 3C, placard number 3 was located where, sir?
I would say in this general area of that white object.
So over in this area.
Yes.
Now, 237K, I'm placing that on the overhead. Do you recognize what's depicted here?
I do.
What do you recognize this to be?
That was the footwear impression marked by placard 2. That was the impression I described as having that herringbone wave type design in the midsole of the shoe.
Okay, and if you just point to that area, sir, when you say the midsole.
Right in this area here.
You're indicating this area here.
Yeah, and this being the heel of the shoe.
You're indicating the heel of the shoe.
Correct.
So just based on your observations when you saw this at the scene, could you determine whether that was a right or left shoe?
It appeared to be a left shoe to me.
Okay. And what did you base that on?
Just the general flow, the curvature of the impression.
Now, just with regard to when you first saw it, I presume this scale was not there.
No, it was not.
So when you first put the placard, that's now, you put placard number 2 there. Some later point was this scale added to the photos.
Yes, by Trooper Celia.
And just with regard to an orientation of this footprint, how was that oriented? In what direction was that pointing?
It was perpendicular to the body. It was...
If I could just for a moment go back to this. You indicated placard 2 was in what area, sir?
Between that white object and the plastic.
And that white object and plastic, so somewhere in this area?
Yes.
Okay. And just the orientation of the toe was where, sir?
Pointing towards this pile of gravel or dirt.
You're pointing to this, sir?
Yeah, that would be the direction that footwear impression was facing. Okay. So perpendicular to the body.
Now, with regard to how you actually came into this area, coming from where you parked and then walked down that distance you've described, would that be in that general direction or some different direction?
Well, it would be the opposite direction of the sand pile. I'd be to get back to my car.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me just... When you first came down, walking from the parking area
Okay.
towards that sand pile, would that be consistent with the direction that you observed that footprint? That
Yes.
location? Now, with regard to this lower tire track, where was that footprint?
Well, the last I can observe in this photo would be in this general area here. The footwear impression was running roughly parallel to that tire impression.
When you say parallel, was it inside these two or on the outside?
On the outside.
I'm just going to briefly show you, these are some of the other photographs that were taken. This is 237B. You recognize that?
Yes.
237C.
Yes.
I'm going to show you 237D. Is there anything different about these? Obviously, this is an overhead. What, if anything, is different, these photographs?
The difference is the lighting, and the easiest way to see which way the light is coming, you can use the blades of grass and the shadow that's created by them. So in this photo, the light is coming from the placard end of the impression, but at a slight angle. So you can see the shadow of the blades of grass. You can also see the shadow of the actual placard itself.
And what is the purpose of moving that light around?
Well, again, it's to capture detail within the three-dimensional impression. In this case here, the area around that midsole, correct, is not getting an adequate area of light, but once you go to the next photo, move the light to another direction, you're able to capture all areas of that impression, and if you at least going from 4 different directions.
Sure, you know 237E.
Yes.
Does that show the lighting being in a different location than the last one?
Slightly different, but not a lot. As you can see, the shadows from the grass and the placard, it's still, the light is coming from behind the placard, but with a little bit of a different angle to it.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back, just you point out, let me just, 237E, essentially the light coming from the left to the right.
Well, if we consider this, I'm going to call this the placard end, the light is coming from the placard end. You can see where the shadow is created.
And again, using, indicated you can see like a blade of grass.
Yes.
In the direction of the light.
Yep.
Okay. And that is running, not necessarily parallel, but almost to this little scale. Right?
That would be correct.
And then as we go to the next one, 237, sorry, let's get to one before, D, that will be different in terms of the light.
Yes, the light is more, is now coming more from, more of a lateral direction to the footwear impression and the placard.
And as you indicated, you would typically take 4 photographs. Do you know whether there were more than that with regard to this footwear impression?
I believe there was 6 that Trooper Sylvia took on this impression.
I'll show you 237F. Does that show a little different in terms of the lighting?
Yes, now it's angled more to the right of the placard, so the light is coming laterally from the scale side to the non-scale side.
237G. That show a different location of light?
It does. Now the light is completely on the other side of the scale, and yes, it is.
Does this show a rough silhouette of that equipment?
It does, yes.
H.
Yes, now the light is more towards the, if you consider the scale an L-shaped scale, it's at the smaller leg of the L, and it's coming from the back of the footwear impression, if we consider this the heel, towards the front of the shoe.
Okay. And 237I. That again, light a little different.
Yeah, the light now is probably behind that L scale coming this way. I'm seeing the shadows of dirt in the area of the impression more than the grass, but yes, I would say it's towards the bottom of the footwear impression now, going towards the placard.
237J.
Again, pretty much in the same position. It's coming from the bottom of that scale, that shorter leg of the L.
237K.
It appears in this one he's holding the light up higher. You're not catching the longer shadows. So it's just the angle of the light is tilted a little bit, but I would say it's more than likely on the far side of the L part of the scale coming down towards the placard.
Now, sir, you indicated that with the scale, there's the ability to then make comparison to, are you familiar with the term one-to-one?
I am, and
Before we get into this
Okay.
area, we'll take one recess. Do you mind discussing?